Let me take you on a trip back in time to March 7th, 2018. Fans of Splatoon 2 were very happy with what they were being delivered. Frequent updates kept adding more to their beloved sequel, leaving no shortage of new content. The sole complaint seeming to be tossed around was that the specials weren't as good as those from the original Splatoon, but other than that, the fans were happy. So why exactly then are we back in 2018? Well, tomorrow, March 8th, 2018, is the date of the legendary Nintendo Direct that revealed such games as Undertale and Super Smash Bros. Ultimate. It was a pivotal day for Nintendo fans all around the world, and yet, what came just before the monumental teaser for the next installment in the Super Smash Bros. Series, a very cryptic trailer for an entire new Splatoon 2 campaign, got completely overshadowed by the hype that followed its announcement. This campaign was revealed to be Splatoon 2 Octo Expansion, which released on June 14th, 2018. Like I mentioned earlier, fans of this game were content with everything they were getting, and yet the developers didn't ease on the updates, releasing this massive, sprawling new campaign nearly a year after the game's initial release. Octo Expansion not only added to the game's extensive amounts of pre-existing lore, but brought something new to the table. Not only did it gift us with many new fantastic music tracks, such as Nasty Majesty and Fly Octo Fly, but it introduced new dynamics and gimmicks to the world of Splatoon as well. This campaign didn't just add new lovable characters, it also introduced some of the most interesting level designs I've seen, with an unbelievable amount of variety. Just like with Tropical Freeze, I could easily go on about many different elements of Octo Expansion for a long time. But for now, the DLC's level design, and how it actually manages to challenge the player, is my main focus. Octo Expansion is laid out in an extremely non-linear fashion. In order to complete the campaign, all that's required of the player is the collecting of 4 Thangs. Yes, their canonical names are Thangs. These Thangs are located somewhere in the Deep Sea Metro, a series of interconnected subway lines containing 80 levels, already far more than the main game's campaign. The Thangs' precise locations, however, are concealed until you reveal the subway lines they're located in. This, combined with the fact that the Metro is filled with splitting paths, means that many of the levels are actually optional. The only ones that are required are the ones standing in the way of you, Agent 8, and the 4 Thangs. However, no matter what path the player chooses to take around the Metro, or how little stages they choose to clear, they're bound to encounter loads and loads of variety. This is what I love about Octo Expansion when compared to the other Splatoon campaigns. Looking at the main game's story mode reveals something blatantly obvious when compared to this expansion. The levels are painfully uninspired. I'm not saying they're bad, I still had fun playing them, and yet they all boil down to aimlessly shooting, running, grabbing a key, and running some more. Yes, there's some semblance of strategy and planning one can do in these levels, but when compared to stages in Octo Expansion, they're so bland. While almost all of these levels share the simple goal of getting from point A to point B, Octo Expansion has such a broad variety of levels that it's very rare for the player to encounter the same level type twice in a row. This is a good thing, not only because it keeps the player from growing bored, but because it also teaches the player how to master weapons they otherwise wouldn't have, how to more carefully conserve their ink, or even how to improve at some of the game's online modes. Granted, not all the stages are like this. Some, like Matchmaster Station, are more tedious than anything, but a large majority of these levels offer some sort of knowledge to be gained about the game's mechanics. Even the most difficult challenges in the campaign, which take the forms of Girl Power Station and the secret final boss, as infuriating as they may be, will inevitably improve your skills. With all that out of the way, let's talk about the main topic of discussion here, the levels and how they actually provide unique, rewarding experiences. I won't discuss every level, as there are some that share similar formats, but I want to at least talk about every type of level packed into this expansion. AO2 Far Out Station, as well as a few other stations like this one, resemble battle stages used in online play, as the main goal in these levels is the same goal as the Rainmaker online mode: carry the Rainmaker to the goal. Sanitized Octolings fortify the pedestal the player must advance towards. These levels require not only an understanding of the Rainmaker, but a keen eye at spotting opponents and swift reactions in order to avoid being eliminated by their attacks. As someone who almost never plays online, these were actually somewhat tough for me at times. A few levels share the same format as AO4 Rollout Station as well. The primary objective here is to make it to the level's end in time, which might seem rather bare bones until you realize your one and only choice of weapon is the baller. Instead of an on-foot race to the finish, you're trapped in a rolling ball that bounces like crazy anytime it makes the slightest bit of contact with something. The baller is actually a special weapon capable of being used in online play, so these levels are a decent way of practicing your skills with it. AO7 Maverick Station is similar but different to AO4. You're under the same time limit, yet this time using a different special, the Inkjet. And just like in AO4, this stage is a fun way to test your skills while away from online games. BO1 What's Up 8-Ball Station is an 8-ball level, which is perhaps one of the most common formats in this expansion. They're largely despised by players, me included, because one false shot in these stages can set off a colorful explosion. The goal is to roll one or multiple 8-balls to the end of the stage without any falling off into the endless abyss of GameCubes and bubblegum below. While I do admittedly find them frustrating while playing them, they require a very precise aim and careful planning, which is why I'm glad they exist, until I actually start playing one again. BO2 Poppin' Fresh Station is part of another series of levels that I enjoy talking about but despise playing. What goes down here is the popping of a set number of balloons by shooting them. It's made difficult by the fact that the players either put on rails where they're unable to stop moving, or put on a time limit. If even one balloon is missed, it's game over. Playing these levels is a test of patience, but ultimately, they serve as some of the best ways to improve at aiming shots under pressure. BO4 Rad Ride Station provides a similar experience to that of the Rainmaker stages, where it replicates an already existing battle mode, but this time it's tower control. Ride the tower, which stops every 5 seconds, and get to the goal while defending the tower and yourself from the onslaught of Octolings. You must not only watch out for the Octolings, but stay on the tower itself, which provides a minuscule amount of protection. Otherwise, it'll begin retreating away from the goal. Again, as someone who's never played much online, these were terrifying to encounter, but ultimately a learning experience. BO6 and many other stages don't actually provide you with a gun at all. Instead, you're given nothing more than a few bombs to use at your disposal. Reach the goal using only these bombs and you're set. B13 Fat Splats Station, I cannot make these names up, is one that requires you to eliminate every enemy in the vicinity in order to reign victorious. These ones are simply explained, but oftentimes difficult if you don't go in with a strategy. Enemies can be placed where you wouldn't expect, and without surveying the area, you could get wiped out in seconds. B-15 Ink from Above Station has Agent 8 dodging missiles that rain from the skies. Find cover quick or you'll be at the mercy of a mighty hail of exploding bullets of ink. This one requires you to survey your surroundings thoroughly before moving ahead. CO2 is part of a strand of levels requiring the player to reach a goal while working with the detriment of having a very little amount of non-refilling ink. Every shot counts in these levels, and careful planning is key. If you run in with guns a-blazing, it will not look good. CO4 Move It Station is a level centered around dodging enemies' attacks until the timer runs out. I particularly enjoyed these levels as they tested not only your reaction time, but your ability to predict where your foe's shots would end up. Not only that, but by moving in specific patterns around the limited space you're provided, you can manipulate where your enemies will fire, and create a clear path for you to escape for a very brief moment of rest. While they were certainly stressful, I loved playing these ones. C12 is Matchmaker Station. Moving on. DO2 is one of a few miscellaneous stages that can be completed in seconds. This one's sole requirement is for the player to time one single shot in order to blow up all the bombs in such a way that they break every single crate littering the stage. Simple, yet fun, nothing more to it. Another of these miscellaneous, hard to categorize stages is EO6, SWAS 8-Ball Station. Don't look that up on Urban Dictionary. Launch 3 8-balls into the air until they line up to make a row, column, diagonal line, whatever. Just time it right and you're set. E11 Bodacious Rotation Station is located in a spinning futuristic sphere containing 8 data points required to proceed. Don't get disoriented as you find them and make your escape. There are also a few stations that require you to beat a much tougher version of a boss from the main campaign. And unlike the originals, where I could usually get away with charging at the Octo weaponry with all my might, these guys were far different. They're granted spiced up attacks and are far more difficult, providing a really tough challenge that I truly appreciated. Countless other stations are all fun, unique variants of the simple point A to point B format the main campaign uses, but other than that, I think I've covered them all. Wait, no. No, I'm forgetting something. Girl Power Station. Defend the orb from Octolings for 90 seconds. That's the goal, yet to be able to achieve it requires a mastery of dodging attacks, striking while still maintaining cover, knowing when to utilize your sub-weapon over your main weapon, which you can choose, by the way. You're granted access to any weapon in the game, because you're gonna need your main to tackle this one. It took me longer than I'd like to admit to beat this stage, but in the end, I came out of it feeling like a better Splatoon 2 player. Like a better man. That's not all, though. After gathering the 4 Thangs, you're pitted against one last gauntlet of challenges. The final push to the end, which is perhaps the most fun I've ever had playing Splatoon. Starting in the Coccyx phase, Agent 8 is lacking anything to defend themselves, and you're tasked with guiding them through the intricate Octarian layers, while staying discreet and unnoticed by the dozens of foes lurking about. The end of this stealth mission leads to the Villy phase, where rather than being stealthy, you have to use your opponent's own attacks to open the way forward until you can finally obtain your own weapon and really get this train moving. The Belly phase is next, which is mostly a test of your maneuverability. Hop across shifting platforms, dodging missiles until you make it up to the Octo Bomber and take him out, only to meet face to face with the Intestinal phase, the main security system of this underground lair. The red lasers here will take you down in one hit, so carefully plan your jumps to dodge each and every one. The Diaphragm phase is essentially a much larger version of the data point levels mentioned earlier. Scale this massive towering structure with your inkjet, taking out Octarians and collecting data points along the way, and you'll make it to the Peristalsis phase in no time. This one's actually kinda boring. But what's next is a one-on-one battle against Agent 3, followed by a massive turf war on the Statue of Liberty. It's actually the Neil statue, but same thing. I kinda sped things up at the end there, but the point I was trying to prove is that this expansion has so much variety. Every level is so different from the last, and they all force you to utilize different weapons in the game's inventory and hone different skills. One level may be a fast-paced race against the clock, while the next ends up being a slow and steady push to the end. Octo Expansion keeps you on your toes from start to finish. And I haven't even mentioned the music, story, collectibles, or anything else that makes this DLC something truly memorable. But I'll come back to talk about that in the future. For now, thank you all for watching.